What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Saturdays in the SEC, episode 145. Hope you guys enjoyed our first episode of the 2025 preview series last week, featuring Texas and LSU, couple playoff contenders, and that's exactly what we got again this week. Two more playoff contenders, teams that expect to be in the college football playoff, to be competing for the SEC championship, and without further ado, man, I think we're just going to go ahead and head up to Knoxville and see what's going on Rocky Top.
Ah, what a good song, dude. Top three, and I'm not talking two or three college football fight songs of and not even the SEC, in all of college football. That is a tough one to beat. As much as I hate that orange, man, it is a tough one to beat.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to talking about this Tennessee team. I mean, a team that was in the headlines this spring with the Nico Imialiava situation. I mean, this team has been discussed a lot this offseason. Kind of an unprecedented situation in really college football history, especially in the NIL era. With this kind, with your starting quarterback and holdouts over money, and now you practically did a trade with UCLA, and now Joey Aguilar is coming in, who was at App State, stayed the spring at UCLA, and is now on Rocky Top. So definitely a crazy offseason for the Tennessee Volunteers after their first college football playoff appearance last year. Josh Heupel entering year five has this program back in the national spotlight. I mean, 15 years of being an absolute afterthought to now Josh Heupel's won 30 games the last 3 years. Um, just give me your thoughts on Tennessee as a not only as a program, but obviously going into 2025, just kind of what Josh Heupel has been able to build there and kind of bringing them back into national prominence.
This, in my opinion, might be one of his toughest jobs yet. Because when he first came in there, like you said, Tennessee's been an afterthought for a while, so the expectations really weren't there too much to get to the college football playoff or to play for the SEC championship, things along those lines. But now that expectation's been set because they did make the playoffs last year. They've won some big games the last 2 years. They beat Alabama twice. So the expectations are there, but I would pump the brakes a little bit because man, there's a lot of unknowns on this team. I believe there's including new incoming transfers and freshmen. I believe they have 40 to 45 guys coming in that are under that, the freshmen or new transfers. So there's a lot of just question marks around their talent. They lost a lot of guys on defense, and you look back at last year, and the defense is a big reason they won a lot of the games that they did, especially the bigger games. I mean, you look at Alabama, they struggled early in the Alabama game offensively, but the defense kept them in it, and the offense was able to figure it out late. Florida ended up dropping that game. The offense just couldn't get anything going, and you had Nico, who everybody they're saying now that they're happy he's gone, and I understand the reasons that they're saying that. But I mean, if you were to ask them before all that stuff went down if they wanted to lose Nico, they'd say absolutely not. There's a reason there was such a big uproar about it. Uh, but you look at Aguilar coming in, like you said, spent the spring at UCLA before he transferred out. But at App State, he had like 23, 24 interceptions. They haven't really thrown many interceptions in Josh Heupel's whole entire time there. The quarterback's done a pretty good job of taking care of the football. So that makes you scratch your head a little bit. But then also, could it be like a Hendon Hooker type situation? Hendon Hooker came from Virginia Tech. Yeah, he was a good talent, but he was nowhere near the talent he was at Tennessee because of the surrounding talent that he had. So you've got to expect that the talent around him now, even though that a lot of it is unproven, you got to expect the talent around him is much better than it was at App State. So that's probably going to up his game. And then also, there's no guarantee that Aguilar is going to be the guy. I mean, you got Jake Merklinger, the redshirt freshman that played some last year, here and there in some mop-up time. So he has a little advantage on Aguilar in the competition because he understands the offense, knows the offense a little better, has a little better grasp on it, has been thrown to some of the guys that he's got more than Aguilar has. But now Aguilar's been there for 2.5, 3 months. So how much is that a problem now? Because you got to expect him. You've been there for this long. You should understand the offense. I'm speaking of Aguilar now. You should understand the offense and things like that. Uh, but last year, their problem on offense, in my opinion, is like you look at Georgia game. Kirby, pinned his ears back and went after Iamaleava all game, and he caused a lot of havoc for him. Got to him a bunch of times, just made him uncomfortable in the pocket, and they're losing four of their starting guys from last year. One of their right tackle was a true freshman this year. Let me find his name. David Sanders. He's expected to be their starting right tackle. He's a true freshman. They returned Lance Hurd from last year. He's going to be their left tackle. But other than that, there's really a lot of question marks at the offensive line position. I think they're going to be able to run the ball well. I mean, they got Deshaun Bishop back, Peyton Lewis. They got Duke's leading rusher from last year in Star Thomas. And with how Tennessee operates on offense, they like to throw the ball around, so that gives them an advantage to be able to run the ball against certain looks the defense will show them. So you got to think that they're still going to be able to run the ball as well as they have been under Heupel. He's always – everybody talks about them being able to air it out, but they're a ground and pound team. If you look at the numbers, they love to run the football. And like I said, they're able to do that because of the looks they get on the defense, because of the type of offense they play. So you expect that to still be the case for them to run the football. But if those offensive line can't make things happen, it might be a long year for them. So offensively and defensively both, but really offensively, there's just a whole lot of unknowns. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree totally, especially offensively, relying on a lot of young players, a lot of inexperienced guys. I look at the receiving core, albeit pretty talented, but you got Mike Matthews going into a sophomore season, 5-star guy coming out. I think he only had 7 catches last year. Chris Brazel's an experienced guy, but he's kind of a deep play guy. They're going to be relying on him a ton. You got Braylon Staley there. So just a lot of guys that don't have a ton of production. So you're going to be looking at some inexperience with the receiving core. You highlighted with the offensive line, one of the biggest questions on the roster. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they're having to replace like 160 starts, I believe, on their offensive line combined. So it's in the hundreds. So it's definitely, that's going to be a tall order. You said Lance Hurd's going to be back, which is big at left tackle. Definitely need David Sanders, the true freshman, a 5-star in last year's class, to come in and help solidify one of those sides of the ball at right tackle. And there's going to be a big-time chance for him to contribute early just based on, the inexperience of that offensive line room and losing so many starters. So a little concerned about the offense as a whole just from an inexperienced standpoint. Like you said, the type of offense that Josh Heupel runs, such wide splits with the receivers, they do such a good job of taking advantage of numbers in the running game. They spread you out so well. They are able to limit your numbers in the box, and that's when they can take advantage. And especially when they've had a running back like Dylan Sampson, who could carry the load. I think this year is going to be more by committee. You're not going to have that one horse to lean on, but you highlighted that stable: Deshaun Bishop, Peyton Lewis, Star Thomas in the backfield. I think all those guys are going to get a good bit of work and kind of be a by committee approach. But as much as they want to run the football, I don't see any problems with the running back room. I just think it's going to be about that offensive line gelling. A lot of pressure on Joey Aguilar, assuming he is the starter, to come in, master the system pretty quickly, and be effective, year one and maybe his only year running this system. So definitely a lot of questions offensively. Only 3 returning starters, so their returning production is in the lower half of the country. Defensively, though, a lot less question marks. You've got a good bit returning in your front 7, which has got to make you feel pretty comfortable there. Tim Banks has done an amazing job with this defense over the past couple of years. And that's kind of really like one of the main signs of of a program growing is, you have an offensive head coach, and when your defensive side of the ball starts to match what you're able to do offensively, that's when you see your program really start to take off. And I think we've seen that at Tennessee. I think you've seen that at Texas with Steve Sarkisian, how their defense has come along as he's been able to acquire more talent there. So they've done a tremendous job, on both sides of the ball. But defensively, they should be able to lean on this unit a little bit early to kind of let that offense get their feet under them.
Absolutely. The defensive line, like you said, they got a fairly decent stable of guys there, but they're the loss of quarterback pressure, the returning guys that's shown that they can get to the quarterback. That they lost, James Pierce, expecting a guy like Joshua Josephs to step up. You got I may be butchering this name, and I'm not trying to. Ajis Farouk. He's expected to step up. He's a younger player. They're expecting big things from him. Then you got some defensive backs. Ricky Gibson, Colton Hood, who backed up Travis Hunter at Colorado. So, he got a lot of good coaching and a lot of good visual reps that he saw backing up one of the best players in the draft. I mean, the Heisman winner last year. You got Jermon McCoy. He's coming off of an ACL injury. He transferred over from the Pac-12. Can't really quite recall the school now, but in the beginning of the year, when he first got to Tennessee, he played pretty well, and then he's coming off that ACL injury. So really just need him to be back for that week 3 matchup with Georgia. He makes a big difference in that defensive backfield. And then, Bryson Eason on the defensive line, David Hobbs on the defensive line. You got Arian Carter in the linebacker field. There's fair amount of guys returning in the linebacker field. There's just the players have been there, but the performance is really not all that much. A lot of these guys didn't have a whole lot of playing time. So there are some question marks like there was on the offensive side, but it's definitely not as bad and noticeable as it is on the offensive side of the ball. But really, it's less about the guys not being there, and it's just the guys not having the playing time that you really want them to have. But I think, like you said, with the defense of how they've been under Heupel there, I expect them to not skip too much of a beat, and that really be their strong suit, especially early in the season, to see and how this offense is going to progress throughout the season. But the defense is the key early, and how we're going to see how their season is going to pan out is how the defense is going to play and respond to certain things. Because like you said, when the defense can match the offense or vice versa, really, last year it was a lot of the offense matching the defense and what they were doing. So if you can continue that, especially early on, I think that it'll set a good precedent and a good step forward for this Tennessee program. But really, there's just a lot of unknowns on both sides of the football. And when you got a coach that's just in year 4 coming out and he's won some really big games and he went to the playoffs last year and really didn't have a great showing, that's not the greatest recipe you want going into the new season. Is a lot of question marks on both sides of the ball. But I'm expecting this defense to be the heart and soul of this team, especially early on in the football season.
Yeah, I kind of want to get your feel as far as a prediction for the season. I kind of know which way I'm leaning with this Tennessee team. Obviously, I'm super high on the program as a whole. I mean, I highlighted earlier 30 wins in the last 3 years, making the college football playoff. Where do you see Tennessee as a program, and kind of where do you see them in relation to the 2025 season as far as their schedule, and kind of a prediction from you as far as that goes?
In relation to the 2025 season, I think they're going to take a couple of steps back, and just basically off of the unknowns. And this is right now. We're still a month and a half away from season. We haven't seen them take a snap yet. We didn't see the spring game. If we did, what does it matter? Like we talked about last week, it's not that big of a telltale sign. I mean, playing Georgia that early in the season, that's a brutal draw. Their out of conference games are very favorable. I think they're going to win a lot of those. And then early on in their conference games outside of Georgia, they've got a couple favorable draws early. They got Georgia's their first one, but then they got Mississippi State and Arkansas. Maybe can help get their feet under them a little bit. One of those is on the road. One of those is at home. Then they take on Alabama, so that's going to be tough. They got to travel to Kentucky. They get to host Oklahoma, which a lot of people are expecting Oklahoma to be much better this year. Excuse me. Then you got New Mexico State, and you end it with Florida, going to Florida, and then hosting Vanderbilt. I don't know if any of you guys saw uh, Pavia on busting with the boys, but that man is very high on his team, which obviously every player is going to be high on their team. But the way he's talking, Vanderbilt might be a force to be reckoned with this year. Man, it's a tough draw in conference. I think they lose to Georgia. I think they lose to Alabama. I think the Oklahoma game's a toss up. I'll give it to Tennessee because they're going to be playing at home. But I think they drop it to Florida, and I think there's a very high chance that they drop it to Vanderbilt as well. I think realistically they're probably going to be 8-4 this year. If I had to guess, that's my real honest prediction. And usually I give 8-4, 7-5, 8-4, 9-3. I think 8-4 is solid. I don't know what their win total is. I haven't looked in quite a while. I don't know if it's 7.5 or 8.5. It's probably around that ballpark.
Yeah.
But if the win total is 8.5, I would take the under if I'm putting money on it. There's too much unknown. And again, like I said, when we opened this up and was talking about Joey Aguilar, it could be a Hendon Hooker type situation where his game is raised to another level just because of the talent he has around him that he hasn't had anywhere else he's been. So that could be the case. But with that offensive line and not knowing a lot of things and the inexperience at quarterback and a lot of loss of production on the wide receiver room, that's where I think that it's just they're going to struggle early and having – two of the biggest teams in your first three conference games or first four conference games, that's tough. But I just realistically, I see 8-4, and that's probably exactly what it's going to be if I had to peer into the future in the end of December.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Actually, I was looking on FanDuel right now. 8.5 is the over under.
I'd take that under.
I would too. Honestly, we're really kind of thinking along the same wavelength. Like I said, kind of hinted at earlier, as a whole, as a program, I'm super high on Tennessee. Like what they've been able to accomplish, kind of the trajectory they've been on. I mean, where they've been the last 15 years compared to what Josh Heupel's accomplished in the last 3 years there, is really, really impressive. But I think as far as 2025, I see the same thing. And I think, honestly, when the Nico situation happened in the spring, I think everyone was kind of expecting a step back a little bit just based on the way the roster was. But I think once that happened, it was definitely like, yeah, that's probably almost a certainty. Now you're going to take a little step back. They went 10-2 in the regular season last year, obviously made the college football playoff, didn't go very well against Ohio State in that first round matchup, but was a big step forward. Yeah, I just see a step back this year. I've got them around 8-4 as well. I think they're in that 7-8 win range. Like you said, I think the Oklahoma game, the Vandy games, those are kind of toss ups. As far as being at Alabama, Georgia, at Florida, I don't see them better on paper right now than those three, especially two of those being on the road. Some of their matchups are pretty favorable. I mean, they do have the Mississippi States, the Kentucky's teams that they're at least equal or better to on paper. Kind of same thing with Oklahoma, Vandy. Both those pretty similar, I feel like, just kind of depending on where the game's being played at. But so I definitely think some of those are going to go their way, or they technically all could go their way. I think 9-3 is probably my absolute floor. My ceiling for them. I think the floor. I could definitely see things going off the rails a little bit, and then maybe being 5-7, 6-6. Don't think it's going to be that bad, but I'm more in the middle, about that 7 or 8 win range. I'll go 8-4 with them as well. I just don't. I think they're going to compete well in that middle tier of the SEC. I just don't think they have enough this year to be at the top with some of those. The Georgias, the Texas, the Alabamas. I think Florida's going to be a little better. So,
let me ask you this.
I think 8-4, a really solid season, though, but a slight step back.
If they would have kept Nico and everything else right here is the same. Now, if they keep Nico, some of the guys that transferred out of the wide receiver room, some of the guys that transferred out on the offensive side probably don't transfer. But if they keep Nico, or if they kept Nico, and everything else went the exact same way, and the roster looks exactly like it does now, except for Nico at quarterback, do you think that your thoughts would be different? Because I I don't know what I think, because I don't think Nico is a Cam Newton type player that's going to bring in a group of scrubs and take them to the natty or make them that much better. I don't know that he's that type of talent just because of the mistakes and stuff we saw him make last year. Granted, he was a younger quarterback, first time starter. What do you think your opinions would be if Nico was still there?
I mean, they would be slightly better for sure. I don't think it would be a monumental difference though.
You don't
Like
think,
I
it'd be
don't
double
think it
digit
would
wins?
be I don't think it would be enough to say get them in the playoff. Like I don't think
Okay,
it
I
would
agree
make
with you.
that maybe a win different. Maybe like say for example they win 7 games with Joey Aguilar. Maybe they pull out 9 with Nico. Maybe I
Okay.
don't know. Like take Joey Aguilar off this roster and insert Nico back in there and just let's just say hypothetically everything's still the same. I still wouldn't have them in the playoff in my opinion. Like
I agree with you.
yeah, I definitely think it would be better for sure. I mean, anytime you're returning a starting quarterback, and um, I do think he is better than what he showed a year ago. Like I do think there would be some growth there. Um, but in my opinion, I don't think it's a $2 million difference or whatever the difference is they're paying. Like say like I think they made the right call not giving in and paying him
Agreed.
4 million. They're probably paying Joey Aguilar 1.5 or whatever. I don't know. Like I don't think it's that much difference. Now I want to see Joey Aguilar play. Like if he comes out and he's absolutely terrible, then I may say like okay, like Nico really would have changed the
Right.
situation. But if he does, I guess what people are projecting him to do, and if he comes out and he plays pretty solidly, like I don't think Nico would have been that much of an upgrade. But I mean, you never know, especially with you never know with transfer quarterbacks how the fit's going to work out, and I mean he could come in and absolutely wet the bed, and they only win 5 games, and I'm like, yeah, Nico definitely would have helped out
Right.
a lot more than maybe I anticipated. But yeah, I don't think it would change their outlook drastically or anything like that.
I agree with that. And guys, I'm not saying that Aguilar is going to be like a Hendon Hooker and going to come in and his game's going to elevate by a million, because Hendon Hooker was still good at Virginia Tech. He just nobody expected him to be what he was when he came to Tennessee. I'm not saying that that is going to happen. I'm saying there's a possibility that that could happen because of what he's got around him. So do not think that I'm sitting here saying, yeah, it's a guarantee. But moving on to our next team, Cam, as much as I do not want to hear this song right now, come on, fire it up for us. Let's take it down to T Town.
That's
Halen for second year. Let's hear what the band's
it.
got to say.
Heading down to T Town, baby. We're heading south, baby. We're heading down to T Town.
Catch you. I hate it. Catch you. $1 million band. Rip.
Yeah, the tide is rolling in. Year 2 of Kalen DeBoer. Um, I tell you what, obviously, this being my team, I mean, I've been really excited to see the roster come together. They were able to keep a good bit on board in the offseason, especially defensively. And I think that's been the key in this NIL era. You saw what Ohio State did, and I think not to compare the two teams, but just from a roster standpoint, Ohio State made waves because of the guys they added in the transfer portal. Quinshawn Judkins,
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Downs, like Will Howard. They made splashes in the portal, but really, in reality, the core of their team was guys they paid to stay in Columbus. hey, don't go to the NFL draft. Come back. Like, we're going to have a special season. We're going to pay the dollars it takes to keep you here an extra year. They did that with Jack Sawyer. They did that with on down the list, especially defensively. Um, and that was really the key in, springing a
Right.
championship run for Ohio State. And I do see some similarities of what Alabama was able to do. You look at returning Deontay Lawson. I know he had an injury, but bringing that guy back is huge. Damani Jackson transferred in from USC, had a fantastic season last year, bringing him back for another year. Even guys on the defensive line, Tim Keenan, Jamarian Latham, like guys that could have went pro or maybe could have looked elsewhere, bringing those guys back. A guy like Jeremy Bernard at receiver, um, Jaden Roberts at right guard. Like the list goes on and on of guys that could have moved on, could have went to another school, could have went to the NFL draft potentially. You were able to keep those guys in the fold for another season. I just thought that was huge for the entire offseason, just from a roster standpoint, from an experience standpoint. You're looking at upwards of 8 starters back on defense. A majority of your production is returning on both sides of the ball, really, but specifically on defense.
It's ridiculous.
And to be honest, and there was times last year where Kane Wommack was kind of under fire. Like you had the Vanderbilt performance, obviously was not very good. The second half of Georgia, you end up winning that game, but didn't play as well as you wanted to in the second half. Obviously, Georgia was in 4-down mode the entire game, but at times against Oklahoma wasn't good, but I went back kind of game by game and looked at the majority of the season. And I was like, man, this defense probably 80 or 85% of the time was a playoff caliber defense, no doubt. They were 11th in points per game last year, and something that Alabama hasn't done this well in a while. They were top 5 in the country at forcing turnovers. Like that was a big emphasis of this defense last year. They were like, yeah, they're kind of going to a different scheme, but this scheme has, when executed correctly, has been a high turnover type of defense. So, his dad, Kane Womack's dad, Dave at Ole Miss, the Landshark defenses, he was the coordinator for several of those. They were really good at turning teams over. I think you saw that last year a lot, which was really good. So I'm super high on this defense. I mean, I think there's no reason this should be a top 5, top 10 defense in the country. Um, spots that you thought were going to be weaknesses, and guys that you didn't think were going to be back, obviously ended up returning. So I feel pretty good at all 3 levels of this defense, with some of the guys I mentioned. The secondary looks to be extremely strong. Damani Jackson, Xavier Brown returning at corner. Keon Sabb had an injury late in the year, but played solid most of the year. Bray Hubbard burst onto the scene. Pro Football Focus had him as like one of the highest graded safeties last year for a lot of the year. Guys like Deshaun Jones are back that played some minutes. You had a freshman like Zay Mincy that played good minutes at the end of the year last year. Red Morgan played a good bit. So you've got a lot of talent, a lot of depth in the secondary. So you got to feel really good about that. The defensive line I mentioned with Tim Keenan, Jamarian Latham. I think James Smith's going to have a breakout year. I think he kind of flashed last year. And then you added Nakai Hill Green in the transfer portal from Colorado to go with Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson with the junior college rule, getting another year of eligibility. Thought that was big. Quay Rusall coming off the edge, had a really nice year last year. So all in all, this defense should be among the best in the country. And for a new quarterback or some pieces on offense, maybe figuring out, it's going to be a nice unit to lean on, especially early in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, the defense is 100% the strong suit of this team, which is if you've been, living under a rock the last 20 years, nothing's new. It's the same as when you went under the rock. Defense is going to carry this Alabama team. It's always carried the Alabama teams. It's been a staple of Alabama football for forever. I mean, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it's always been the defense. I mean, you look at A.J. McCarron, the most decorated quarterback ever at Alabama, and his offenses, now by all means they were great, but it's the defenses that got them to where they were and how dominant they were. So you hit the nail on the head with the defense. Now, the flip side of the offense, it is the same coin, two heads to the same coin. There is so much returning on this offense. I mean, offensive line is probably as strong as it's been since I can remember. I mean, you got Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford, Ryan, going down the list. I hit Ryan Williams. You got Jaden Roberts, and then you got Geno Vandemark, Cam Dewberry, some question marks there at left guard, who's going to play there, and then Wilkin Formby and Casey Poe in the mix at right tackle. It's probably going to be Wilkin Formby if I had to guess. I don't know everything, but it's probably going to be him. But the offensive line is just an absolute star-studded offensive line this year. That's going to anchor that team. It's going to allow Ty Simpson or Keelan Russell, Austin Mack, whoever is going to be playing quarterback, probably going to be Ty Simpson, going to give them a lot of time. And then really where the biggest question mark is, I guess, for this offense is going to be at running back. And when you got a staple of offensive linemen like that, it really takes a lot of the pressure off of the running backs. Find the hole and hit it. Jam Miller is the guy that's expected, to be the guy. But I feel like he'll need to step his game up a little bit if he wants to stay the guy throughout the whole season. I think he's going to start the season as the top of the running back depth chart, but his production's got to be better than it has been for him to keep that. You got guys like Dre Washington, Richard Young, Daniel Hill, pushing him for that starting spot. So I think it's going to be more of a running back by committee, which it has been for a while at Alabama under Saban. It was that way at times too. But when you found the hot hand, you ride it. So I think that's probably the weakest part of their team. But when you got quarterback that's coming in like Ty Simpson or Austin Mack or Keelan Russell, whoever it is, these are the guys that DeBoer needs for his offense, that wants for his offense. I mean, you look the last 2 years, I mean, just say last year, we're talking about DeBoer, your quarterback, run first quarterback for sure, one of the best running quarterbacks the game of college football has ever seen, but he's not the type of quarterback that DeBoer needs to run his type of offense. I mean, you want a guy that can absolutely sling it down the field, throw it all over the place, spread the defense out, and then allow your run game to take off. He wasn't able to, DeBoer wasn't able to run the offense. I feel like that he wanted to run, that we saw from him at Washington all those times, those few years at Washington. But with guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, then you got Isaiah Horton, Lajier Brooks, and Derek Meadows are all coming in as well. I think your talent there and your staple of wide receivers is phenomenal this year. I mean, their wide receiver room is really, really good. They've stacked talent there the last few years, and they've been able to keep talent in that room as well, which in today's college football is tough. So I think that we're going to see the offense that everybody expected to see when DeBoer came this coming year, no matter who's at quarterback, but I expect it to be Ty Simpson. He can run a little bit. He can run when it's necessary, but he's not going to be the guy that's taking carries away from the running backs, and he's not going to be the guy that's as soon as the play breaks down, he's looking to run, which I feel like Milroe wasn't that way at times. He held on to it too long, I feel like, certain times, but then it got to where he might take off a little too early. So I think with the quarterback he's got and the players he's got, this is the perfect storm for DeBoer to take off and be what he was expected to be last year, which I think was a little bit pump the brakes just a smidge. It was his first year. He's got to figure out how it works. The SEC is a lot different than the Pac-12. He understands it now. I think that this is the year that everybody was expecting last year. This is what's going to happen because, like I said, the wide receiver room, the offensive line being so dang strong, and then you finally got the type of quarterback that you need for this type of offense. They're going to take shots down the field. They're going to spread the defense around, and then they're going to be able to run the ball really well. I want to hear your opinions on this offense, especially the offensive line. Obviously, the quarterback situation. We'll get into that a little bit, but I want to hear about your thoughts about the offensive line and the running back room, really.
Yeah. First, I kind of want to touch on what you said about the program as a whole, like DeBoer's first year. And I think myself included, and I was one of the main ones, I thought this team was going to be in the playoffs last year, had a had a good chance to the end of the year, um, debacle at Oklahoma. But um, just I think it was such an unprecedented situation. I don't think I took into account how difficult that transition was going to be, especially that first few months. Because you look at teams getting a new head coach. When's the last time that somebody got a new head coach and their program was like at the top of the sport? I mean, that's it. I mean, I can't recall a time that's happened. Anytime a new coach has ever come in, it's because one got canned before him. I mean, the fact of you had an absolute legend, the greatest of all time, step down. The program's still at the top of the game, like in the top three or four programs in the game,
Went to
and
the
then
playoffs and saved us last year.
went to the playoffs the previous year, and it was in the NIL era. He steps down in January. The portal's closed, but as soon as he steps down, the portal's open for Alabama. The portal's not open for anybody else. So it's like you've got to fly into Tuscaloosa and just keep it together. Like, dude, the boat's leaking. We gotta slap some tape on it and just keep this roster together because he left Washington, so he could grab a few guys from Washington, and he did that. He got Jeremy Bernard, Parker Brailsford. He got some guys that really contributed well last year. But it's like you're trying to come in, all your guys can leave, but you can't hardly add anybody because there's only one or two. I think Michigan, they got Keon Sapp from Michigan. Harbaugh left. Like there was two or three teams that had the portal open. Everybody else was closed. So you had to really come in and just, hey, let's try to keep it together as much as we can. We'll add some pieces in the portal. They lost some players in the portal before Saban retired. And then obviously when he left, you lost more. And then you're trying to replace him in the spring and keep everything together. So, and I think it's one of those situations too where he did show a lot of loyalty to Jalen Milroe because like he was one of the main guys the night he gets there. He's like, oh yeah, I'm staying. Like he was one of the main guys that kept everything together. So it's like I do think he did show a good bit of loyalty, and it's like, hey, we've rode with him all year. Like we're just going to ride it out all the way to the end. And so I mean, you could look back and say, okay, yeah, maybe you should have made a change at the end of the year. I'm not sure how much it would have changed anything, but I mean, obviously that's something we'll never know. But I think, like I said, myself included, underestimated this was such an unprecedented situation in an unprecedented era of college football. It's like, yes, it was a disappointing year, like 9-4. Like I think the talent there should have been better than that. But it's like I think when you kind of take a couple steps back and look at it from a kind of an overarching view, it's like, man, like he actually did a pretty good job of keeping everything together. Now this year he's got everything in place. He's got his staff. He's got Ryan Grubb back, which is a
Right.
huge deal. He's got a guy that's been with him for years and years back as his offensive coordinator. He's able to keep Nick Sheridan on staff. I mean, he basically demoted Nick Sheridan and kept him on staff. Like I think that's a huge deal too.
That says a lot about the culture. That says a lot about who DeBoer is as a person, man. Because a lot of guys, especially at that level, getting demoted, they're like, "Peace, somebody else is going to want me." That says a lot about who DeBoer is for sure, and the culture that he's building there at Alabama, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think those two pieces on offense is huge. This year you're already in place. You got your staff in place. Obviously you make tweaks every year, but your recruiting, you've got that going. And by the way, they've been recruiting extremely well in the month of June and July. They've been on fire. So I think from a program standpoint, I'm super excited about the future, excited for this season. And I think he's going to end up being just fine. Like I said, it was an unprecedented situation, so you don't really have anything to compare it to. You know what I
Right.
mean? We don't have like, oh, such and such step down at USC and a legend step down, and this guy came in and he went 11-1 this first. Like we don't really have anything to gauge it off of. So
The last time you can do that is when I'm drawing a blank. USC's coach that went to
Pete
uh,
Carroll.
The last one was in 2003, 2004, 2005, whatever, early 2000s when Pete
Yeah.
Carroll dipped because there was some investigation going on and he went to the NFL. That's the last time you can do that. And then what happened to USC after that? I mean, straight down tank job without trying. Like it wasn't an NFL tank job on purpose to get a good pick. This was a you're at the top of the sport and you went straight to the bottom and you haven't been relevant since. So that's the last time you can look at something like that where a coach left on his own volition when he was at the top of the game and it didn't go well there. So yeah, absolutely. Kalen DeBoer has he exceeded my expectations last year for sure. But also this year, there's zero unknowns. There's nothing that's going to surprise him at all this year. He understands how the SEC works. He understands how to operate week to week, especially in this new era of college football. So there's going to be no surprises for him this coming season.
Yeah, and so now that I've kind of talked about the program as a whole, I do want to answer your question about the offense, and I do think the offensive line is what I'm most, curious to see. Especially from an injury standpoint, which Caden Proctor played all last year, but he was banged up a little bit early. I think your tackle depth is a little in question. Like you got some youth behind him, and Will Conformby's probably going to get the first crack at right tackle. I would think would start game one. A little bit of youth behind them, so I think it's key keeping him healthy. I mean, if this offensive line is what it's advertised to be and as good as they think it can be and what everyone expects, like this is a no doubt national title contender if that offensive line is what we think it is and what it should be, barring they stay healthy and everything. I think getting Parker Brazelford, another guy that could have went on, they were able to keep in the fold. I thought was one of the better centers in the country last year. I think the same this year. Keeping a guy like Jaden Roberts was huge. Couple spots they'll have to fill. I think they've got some pretty good candidates. Gino Vandermark played a lot last year. He's back. Will Conformby, we've already mentioned. A couple young guys, a couple transfers that could come in and provide some depth. So, yeah, if this offensive line, like let's say, for example, if it's a top 5 offensive line in college football, then yeah, this is a national title contending team, in my opinion. Just when you look at them on paper, I mean, you never know till the games are played, but um, from a roster standpoint, I feel very confident. The receiver room is the one I'm probably most excited to see. People around the program like this is the best receiver room they've had since 2020, since Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle was there. I mean, that includes a room in 2021 that had Jameson Williams and John Mechie. Like, that was no slouch of a room, but it was a little bit thin outside of those two. But I think this room as a whole is probably the deepest they've had in definitely quite some time. You mentioned Ryan Williams, one of the better players in college football. Jeremy Bernard, I thought had a really good year last year, just as solid and steady as they come. They've been raving about Isaiah Horton this spring. He's really been making some waves. And a young guy that didn't play much last year that they really love is Rico Scott. He played a little bit as a freshman. They think he's got a chance to really crack the rotation, get some meaningful snaps. And, a guy like Cole Adams is coming back off of injury. You mentioned Derek Meadows was a high recruit in this past class. So the receiver room's in great shape. Like I said, the running backs will be kind of by committee, but Jam Miller going to be the starter week one more than likely. Richard Young's a guy that's going to get a step up in production, in carries. They added Draylon Washington out of the portal. Daniel Hill's a younger guy they're really high on too. And then the quarterback, with Ty Simpson, I mean, Ty is going to be the starter game one. I feel pretty confident saying that unless something just crazy happens in fall camp. They feel good about his ability to run the offense and excited to see that. And like you mentioned, I just think his skill set is going to fit this offensive scheme that they want to run much, much better than Jalen Milroe did a year ago. I mean, Jalen Milroe, dude went in the third round. He is a very good player. There's no doubt about it. I just think Ty Simpson is just going to be a much better fit running the offense that they want to run. Keon Russell, He's got a bright future ahead of him as well. Austin Mack is going to be in there providing depth. And yeah, just really excited to see this team year two. You're not coming in on the fly trying to get everything together. You've really had a full off season. I think this year will be a true gauge going forward of like, okay, now we can fully judge what Kalen DeBoer is and is going to be at Alabama, because now he's here, he's got his bearings under him, he's got his staff here, and I think now's when, okay, I can 100% judge what he does on the field going forward. I just think last year it's totally fair to judge, absolutely, because at the end of it, I mean, wins and losses are what everybody looks at, and that's what you're judged on. At the end of the day, it's fully fair to judge, but I don't think it was fair to do that at 100%. You know what I mean? Like I think now and going forward, like, okay, now you've had a little bit of time there. Now we can fully see kind of what you're going to be at Alabama. But and kind of touching on the end of last season, it's pretty simple to figure out what happened. Alabama's last three games, Oklahoma, the Iron Bowl against Auburn, and Michigan, you turned the ball over 12 times in those three games. Like, that's your late season collapse. I mean, that's one stat can tell you what happened. 12 turnovers. Auburn would have had a much better season if they didn't turn the ball over so much early in the season. How many wins did they cost themselves? That's exactly what happened to Alabama at the end of the year. Yeah. I mean, Alabama, the way they were turning the football over, should have lost three straight. The way they turned the ball over four times in Norman, four in the Iron Bowl. Unfortunately for you, Auburn couldn't score and take advantage of it. But you still turned the ball over four times. Like, it wasn't a clean game. And then the Michigan game, dude,
nothing went
football
right.
Back 100 years. Like,
yeah.
I'll never show me that tape again. Never. I never want to see that as long as I live. That is 3 hours that I will never get back. That was some of the ugliest football that not even Alabama's played. That is some of the ugliest football I've ever laid my eyes on. That was atrocious. It was like
it
was raining. It was you know what? I'm not even going down that. Don't ever mention the Reliquous Bowl. I don't ever want to hear that word again. If you want to torture me, chain me to a chair and put the Reliquous Bowl on the TV, because it will be absolutely, it was horrible. But we're past that. We're on to 2025. I'm excited to see what this Alabama team's going to do. Same for Tennessee. I'm excited to see what this year holds for them. Going to be a super interesting year for both these teams. Like I said, playoff expectations. I mean, Alabama's over under 9 wins. Give me a record prediction right now for Alabama here on July 8th. What's your best feel based on their schedule and the roster you see on paper?
I think the absolute floor, I'm talking about, they roll out there and they underperform by everybody's expectations, including the Boer. I think the absolute floor is 8-4. I think the ceiling is 11-1. We've talked about several times over the last 2 seasons. The times of teams going undefeated is probably never again in college football, once in a blue moon. I think that realistically, 10-2, 9-3 is probably where they're going to be at. I think, what did you say? It was 9.5 is their win total?
Yes. So let me double check that. 9.5 for Alabama. Georgia is at 9.5. Texas is at 9.5. There may be another one, but I believe it's just those 3 at FanDuel that are at 9.5. There's a whole bunch of teams at 8.5, but I think those may be the only 3 at 9.5.
I don't know that I'd touch that total either way, because the 3 games that I'll say if they go 9-3 is at Georgia, at South Carolina, at Auburn. Those are the 3 games that's going to tell you how your season's going to go. If you can get through those games 1 and 2, you're going to be in the playoffs for sure. You're a 10-2 team. You're probably going to be playing in Atlanta, and you're going to be in the college football playoff. You drop those 3 games, you still have a chance to probably get to the college football playoff, depending on how those games go. but I wouldn't touch the win total for Alabama either way, unless it goes up one or down one, just because those three games. Those are the biggest question marks. Obviously, those are the three toughest games I think that they're going to play. They got, I mean, you open up with Florida State and you got Wisconsin week 3. So you got two premier teams in your first 3 weeks. Then you get a bye week, and then you kick it off with Georgia. It's crazy that the two teams we cover this week, their first conference games, both Georgia. But I think those three right there is why I'm tiptoeing around the win total. I'm not sure exactly, but I think 10-2 is probably going to be right there. 9-3, one of those two is probably what they're going to end up at. Which I think both of them, depending on how the games play out, is probably good enough to get them to the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like that 10-2 area. I mean, I feel like 11-1 may be a little aggressive, although I think talent wise they're good enough too. If you want to be realistic, there's a few teams in the SEC. I think you could say, just from a roster standpoint, Georgia, Texas, and Alabama are good enough to win every game on their schedule. Don't think that's going to happen. I'm leaning. I would probably say my heart's wanting to say 11-1. I think that's probably a tad aggressive though. I'm going 10-2. I'm like you. I think the floor is 8-4. I'm realistically saying 9-3, 10-2. And you say that too, and you're like, man, like that's not. I mean, that's good, but that's not like great. But I think people have to realize like we're in a different era of college football in the SEC now, in the NIL era. The scheduling, I feel like, is, with the expanded SEC now, it's just everything's a little bit different. I just think those win totals of the past teams, multiple teams going 12-0, I just don't think that's going to be a regular thing anymore. So you look at it and go like 9-3, man. That's not. I mean, that's good, but it's not really that. Like that's not anything special. But I just think people have to realize kind of the times that we're in now and the expanded playoff format. Everything's just a little bit different now. So, yeah, I definitely feel. I just think it's going to be better than 9-3 a year ago. Like you said, underperformance and everything. I think the floor is 8-4. I don't think it's going to be worse than 9-3, honestly. So I'm almost tempted to say floor 9-3, but yeah, I think 10-2 is a pretty good sweet spot. I think you can make a case for 11 or 9 or which way. I think 10's a pretty good sweet spot because honestly, you look at some of the strength of schedule metrics. Like this is the top 5 strength of schedule in the country. Yeah, I wouldn't put it quite on the level of like Florida or Oklahoma, but it's just below that. Like it's a top 5, top 10 schedule in the country. Normally you just play one Power 5 out of conference team. They have 2, which I know it's not
the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, 2 in the first 3 weeks, and I know they're, neither team's probably going to be like. I mean, Wisconsin, I think will be okay in the Big Ten.
Hey, you got Gus Malzahn week 1. You better be shaking in them boots, son. They Gus Malzahn offense is Alabama's kryptonite sometimes.
Well, and I have to, we'd be remiss to mention it, man. Thomas Castellanos, man. I mean, he sends the Tide's not stopping him.
He did say that, but
he said the Tide's not stopping. Where you at, Nick Saban? You ain't here no more, pal. Yeah. Who's gonna stop me? Who's going to stop me?
That defense that you highlighted right when you started talking about this Bama team, that's who's going to stop you, buddy. You ain't playing at Boston College no more, my friend.
So but you got to realize he said too, man, they can't just sit back in the zone and watch his eyes. I mean, they're not going to be they're going to have to play him. He's got a different talent level now, according to him. He's got different. He's got these 2-win Knowles now. So. Florida State's going to be much with his better
skill set. That dude, I love the confidence. I love confidence and all that stuff. But some of these guys be talking out of their rear end, dude.
Yeah, I know. I loved it, man. When I saw it, honestly, I thought it was a fake quote at first, and then I saw it was from the official On3 page. Because sometimes bots like to fake.
Yeah, that came out like 3 or 4 months ago or something like that.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. I can't remember the exact date, but when I saw it was verified through On3, I was like, okay. Because honestly, I read the quote at first. I was like, there's no way he said that. I don't think he said that actually, because you see a lot of stuff generated nowadays, and when it was verified, like, oh, okay, he actually did say that. I was just grinning. I was like, I love it though. I mean, I love it. Like whether it's
Well, it's more
ridiculous
material.
or not, it's fun. Um, we'll see what happens, but yeah, all in all, it's a top 5 or 10 schedule, strength in the country. So going to be really uh, exciting season. I love really tough schedules. Love out of conference Power Five matchups. Getting multiple of those for the first time that I can remember for Alabama. It's going to be a lot of fun early in the season. Good test before you get into conference play. But yeah, I feel like 10-2 is the sweet spot. I'm I'm gonna go ahead and throw out a guarantee. Alabama, you're gonna be in the college football playoff. I'm gonna go ahead.
Okay,
I'm gonna go ahead and
I
throw it
like
in
that. I like that guarantee. I don't hate it. I agree with you 100%. Now, do you think that they're going to be in Atlanta? Everybody's talking about the SEC championship doesn't matter anymore. My ass, dude. It is that's what you play for in the SEC. You get to Atlanta, you're getting to the college football playoff. Do you think they're in Atlanta? Because now it's not the East and West division; it's the top two teams. So you're not getting a nice draw because you're on one side or the other. I, I think probably so. I really do. I think they probably will be. I just want to hear your opinion on it.
I would lean yes because obviously it's we're in July. All we have to go off is what's on paper. I mean,
Right.
so I think on paper, I think you can make a case they're second, third best in the SEC. Probably, I think the top three is all pretty close. Like
Right.
I don't think
Interchange.
I don't think there's much of a difference on paper. Probably between Texas, Georgia, Alabama. I would lean yes as of today. I would predict Texas and Alabama at just ever so slightly. I think you can make a case for any of those three. I think it's going to be a combination of two of those three. I don't know what you could make a case for any combination, but I think it'll be two of those three more than likely. Like I said, this is just on paper.
Right.
Obviously, we all want to see games, but yeah, I would lean yes as of now because what's crazy to think about, man, they went into Norman in the driver's seat to be in Atlanta. They had the tiebreaker. All they had to do was beat Oklahoma and Auburn. They win those two games, and they end up beating Auburn. So if they would have just beat Oklahoma, they're in Atlanta against Texas. I mean, that's a great like all they went through last year, losing to Vandy, losing at Tennessee. Even after those two, they was still going to be in Atlanta. That's the crazy part, and they blew a golden opportunity. You talk about another tape I want to burn. That's that Oklahoma. Uh, but yeah, is I mean that's crazy. After I would have never thought if you told me about Vandy, I was like, there goes Atlanta. Or no way. Oh no, actually, if you go to Norman to beat not a good Oklahoma team, obviously they're better than what the record said, and
Yeah.
then you beat Auburn, you're in there. So I mean that's the crazy part about it is they really should have been there last year, probably, but obviously didn't work out because they played like crap at the end of the year. But yeah, I would lean as of today. I would say yes, but I think it's going to be a tight race, and I think there's several other SEC teams that are going to have a say in that too. Because I'll be honest, this really top 8 or 9 in the SEC is pretty loaded for real. So
100%. And while we're on Alabama, we got to touch on, man, recently DeBoer has been killing it in recruiting. I was told that he can't recruit because he came from Washington and he's not going to be able to recruit the South. Well, he has put all those people's foot right in their mouth because he is recruiting at the top of the game, man. He is brought Alabama to a top 3 class, I believe, might be top 2 now, but I believe the last I checked, he was a top 3 class for the 2026 class. And I got to touch on it for a minute because I've been seeing a bunch of it. Obviously, everybody knows I'm an Auburn fan, and Hugh Freeze has not been killing it like DeBoer has in the recruiting trail. However, the last few years the recruiting class was ranked high. I mean, he had a top 10 recruiting class last year at Auburn. And DeBoer's in the same boat, in my opinion, that Hugh Freeze was last year. look at all the people that we just talked about over the last 30 minutes of all the returning talent, all the big time names that are going to be on both sides of the football. One of the easiest things to recruit with is playing time. That's why Auburn was able to get such good players the last few years, because they're like, you're going to come in and you're going to play. You're not going to sit behind somebody for 2 years and not play. DeBoer's in that boat right now. There's a lot of guys that he's going to lose next year. So this team right here is stacked that we've just talked about. So there's guys that are going to be gone that he's going to have to replace. So he's able to recruit playing time a lot harder than he was last year, I feel like. You got to take your hat off to DeBoer, because, like I said, we were all told that he's not going to be able to recruit the South, and he has absolutely done just that. He is recruiting out of his rear end. Now, I do want to touch on this. I know we didn't cover them this week, but it's the SEC podcast, baby. We're talking about it. The Auburn recruiting, like I just said, there's so many young guys on Auburn's roster now that are going to play, that have been recruited on. You're going to come in, you're going to play. Now they've got playing time. They're much better players now. They're going to be there for a few years. So Auburn can't recruit that way now. They can't go out and say, yeah, you know, everybody that we're recruiting is going to play immediately when they get here. It's a lot harder to do that. And then also, it's a lot like Florida last year. They had, we're in the 80s in the recruiting time, or in the recruiting rankings at this time last year. And then they started winning some games, and then the recruits were able to see, okay, well, I see the vision there. I see what's going to happen. I like that. I can see myself playing in there. They're winning games. They're being competitive with teams that nobody thought they would be competitive with the toughest schedule in the nation. So I think that Hugh Freeze's best recruiting pitch for the next class is going to be winning games. I'm not saying win 9-10 games. Give me 8. We're going to be okay. But I think a lot of people, whether you're an Auburn fan or not, whether you like to throw shade or not, now, should Hugh Freeze have been on the golf course 10 days out of the first week of the month in June? Probably not. But also, I think he's kind of handcuffed a little bit in the situation of, okay, well, now we've got the players there. The recruits are seeing, okay, well, you got all these players, but you only won 6 games last year or whatever it was. So can you win? If you can't win, I don't want to come play for you. So I think this is mainly for the Auburn fans to give yourselves a chill pill a little bit, in the sense of, if Auburn starts winning games, they're not going to end in the 2026 recruiting class in the 80s. They're not going to. They start winning games, they're going to gain some recruits, and they're going to get some big time guys. They just got a big time commit the other day, a 4-star. So just pump the brakes a little bit on all the shade being thrown to Hugh Freeze. He's not an idiot. He wants to be there coaching at Auburn. He's not there saying, I'm going to tank this team on purpose. I want to lose my job. He wants to be there coaching at Auburn. He said this several times. I truly believe that this is a place he truly, really wants to be for a long time. If they can win a few games early in the season and get some bigger wins and show the progression that this team is not what it was the last 2 seasons, Auburn's going to be just fine in the 2026 recruiting class. So he's, in my opinion, in the same boat that Napier was last year. I want to get your.
I have a question for you, and then once I get your answer, I do have a comment about the board's recruiting, and Saban's been mentioned in there. But I want to ask you this question first: I know you compared it to Florida and Billy Napier last year, which I actually think is a really good comparison. You mentioned Auburn obviously spent a lot of resources the last 2 classes getting this roster to the point it's at now, where you've got some really high-profile young players. And I'm sure that is part of the recruiting, as well as, like, you're probably going to invest those resources to keeping those guys on your team. But I did have a question of, do you think it's more of that? Do you partially think it's maybe from an NIL perspective, some boosters being like, hey, we've invested heavily the last 2 classes. We want to see it on the field a little bit first. Do you think it's partially that, and
for sure,
do with the young players as well?
For sure. I think it's definitely, you want to see your return on investment, just like any investment you make. You want to see your return on that. Every fan does. Even all the guys all the way down that give $100 to the Tigers Unlimited Fund, or whatever it's called. It's slipping my mind right now. But even those guys that are just giving $100 for the year, they want to see a return on their investment. I mean, you got Keldrick Falk that you're paying bukus of money to. Jackson Arnold, you're paying bukus of money to. Cam Coleman, you're paying lots of money to him. There's a lot of guys on this roster that, like you said, are young guys that have been big-time recruits the last 2 years, and their pockets are getting lined really well to go win 5 and 6 games. Like, guys are going to stop paying lots of money if they're just going to be giving their money away essentially and not get anything that they want back. So I think that's also a big part of it. And in turn, when if Auburn is able to win some games, that will turn it around of, okay, we'll fork out a little more money for you to get to this next class. But also, Keldrick Faulk's going to be a top 10 pick next year for sure. He might be the first defensive player taken in the draft. So that's that money that you're allotted there is going to be gone next year. So you can plan for that. But then you got Singleton that's coming in that you gave a lot of money to coming from Georgia Tech. So there's a lot of money on the roster right now that's going to be there for the next year and a half to 2 or next year to 2 years. So I think that is a big part of it. Now, however, I don't think this problem will be happening if Auburn had won 9 games last year. I think those guys would have said, yeah, we'll write more checks. But I think that you're right on it there for sure of people wanting to see return on investments, especially the big time booster guys that are paying lots of their own money to see a team be mediocre.
Well, yeah, I just think too. I think you said it perfectly. I mean, it's a little bit of a wait and see approach, like from a on the field standpoint, and two, you got a lot of young players. You can add guys via the transfer portal.
Right.
Hey, we already got a lot of young guys that are going to be returning. Maybe we'll add some high school guys, but maybe we want to wait till the portal opens after the season and have a lot of resources to invest in there too. So, yeah, like you said, I mean, it is way too early. I mean, there's definitely reason for concern because I mean, it is July, but I don't think it's like panic button. You know what I mean? Like there's a long enough way to go to where you're not like, okay, like you said, if Auburn gets the results on the field this fall, I think a lot of that will work itself out.
And I think the argument that or the things that are being said right now on July 8th, if next month, a month from now, on August 8th, when the new format has been opened of revenue sharing and all of those stuff comes out at August 1st, when you're officially able to write down numbers to tell players, okay, this is what you can make, this is what you'll make from the NIL fund, and then here's what you can do on your own. I think that if they're sitting in the same boat now and had not signed anybody at this point in a month, then I think that those critiques are a little more that they hold a little more weight than they do right now. I just think right now it's wait a little bit because John Cohen and Hugh Freeze came out last week and said we want to do it the right way. We're trying to do it the right way. So August 1st is the time where we can actually show numbers to players and recruits and things along those lines. And this new wave of recruiting and revenue sharing, it's going to be a lot to juggle for everybody because it's new. I mean, you got your NIL fund that's 90% of it or 85% of it or something like that goes to college football and men's basketball and then the rest of it trickles down to all the other athletics. So college football and or men's football and men's basketball is what's receiving I believe it's 90% of the NIL market to give to their players. And then the revenue sharing comes along and it's these guys have got to go get their own sponsorships or whatever you want to call it, like Bo Nix did with Milo's. They've got to go do their own. And the salary cap is, I don't even remember what the salary cap is, 2 million something or something, 20 and a half million, I think is what it is for the salary cap. But if a Auburn affiliated person goes out and helps these players get a certain brand deal, well, then that money they get from that brand deal that was sourced through an Auburn employee goes against their salary cap. So that's going to be some tight water or rough waters to navigate because you don't want to go against your salary cap and then handcuff yourself to not be able to pay other players and pay the guys that are producing or pay the guys that you're trying to get in through the transfer portal or through high school recruiting. So it's just a new era that a lot of people are going to have to be navigating in a strange way. Georgia's doing the same thing, but Georgia, they win. So it's easier to get recruits there because it's easier to see, the upside of going there. There is no upside to going to Auburn right now because, like I said, the playing time is not like it was the last 2 years. You can't really recruit on that. So with all this revenue sharing stuff, teams will start filling it out, but all of that becomes official open business August 1st. So if we're sitting here August 8th and Auburn's still 89th in recruiting and hasn't added anybody, then I think all those critiques hold a lot more weight than they do right now on July 8th.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to make a quick comment on the Kalen DeBoer recruiting with Alabama.
Absolutely.
And obviously, there's been a lot of, well, not really criticism out there, but I think maybe a lack of credit his direction. Um, there was a picture of Nick Saban with some recruits, and everybody's like, oh, Nick Saban's still doing the recruiting and all like that. And I just think there was a couple of those recruits there, a couple of recruits that committed recently, and they're like, we've never even talked to Nick. Like, we've never met or seen Nick Saban before. Like, people are coming out like, hey, give Kalen DeBoer and his staff their proper credit, because they did a great job in our recruitment and blah blah blah. So I do think, like, I understand other fan bases running with that. Like, I would probably be making the same jokes if the role was reversed for somebody else. But I do think in reality, like, it's not just Kalen DeBoer. Like, his staff, he's done an excellent job with the staff. Christian Robinson, the outside linebackers coach, has been amazing on the recruit trail. Courtney Morgan, the GM, who he brought with him from Washington, he was one of the main architects of the Michigan roster that ended up winning the national title eventually, and he helped put together that roster at Washington for a couple years when DeBoer was there, and then now at Alabama. So it's like that guy is clearly one of the best in the country at his job. So it's like, because in this new age of NIL and transfer portal, like, Courtney Morgan and his staff, like, they handle, like, DeBoer does recruiting. Don't get me wrong, as all head coaches do, but like a lot of it is delegated to Courtney Morgan. Like, he is the general manager. Like, he's the one getting in touch with these recruits, and obviously DeBoer's involved in that, but like, he handles a good bulk of that. So in putting the roster together, that's his job. So he's done. I mean, he's done amazing. So it's a lot more than just DeBoer. It takes an entire staff and an entire program to be able to do what these guys put these classes together. So it's like, I get it, sure. Obviously, they are benefiting off what Nick Saban built at Alabama. 100%. Nobody would ever deny that. Like, Nick Saban left the Alabama program at the top of the sport, and Kalen DeBoer and his staff are benefiting off that. 100%. They're going to benefit off that from years to come. The next coaches are going to benefit off that.
Right.
But to say, like, oh, he's only recruiting in the top three because Saban's still doing the recruiting for him, I just think is just flat out false, honestly. I mean, that's just not true. Sure, they're benefiting on what Nick Saban did. They're 100%. No, I mean, obviously they are, but it's like they're not recruiting in the top three still because Nick Saban's there every weekend doing the recruiting. Like, that's just, I get the jokes. Obviously, I get it, but it's like, at the end of the day, that's all it is a joke. Like, it's not true. Like, just give the man his credit. That's all.
Yeah,
That's all I'm asking. But
it's
and I get it too, because of he only won 9 games last year. There was a little bit of a fall off from the wins perspective. So it's like, oh, he's falling off. They're falling off post Saban. Now the recruiting's only doing good still because he's the one running it behind the scenes. The funniest thing, though, I thought is apparently, according to everyone, Nick Saban retired because he couldn't keep up in this NIL era. Now Alabama's only recruiting in the top three because he's still running it. So which one is it? Like, it can't be both ways. Like, I mean, even if he was still recruiting, obviously they're going to use him as a resource 100%. But it's like, to give him all of the credit for a top three class is just ridiculous. But anyways, that's
Alabama's always going to benefit with just their script A that they got on their hat, because I mean, Gene Stallings in the 90s won a national championship. He benefited from Bear Bryant. In the early 2000s, Bama was signing top 10 recruiting classes. Shula just couldn't coach himself out of a wet paper sack. I mean, Bama has always had really, really, really good recruiting classes because they have a history of winning championships. Every past coach is going to help. Now, Bear wasn't there on the scenes going to the recruiting trail. I get all that. but they all benefited. All the coaches after Bear benefited with their recruits because of what Bear Bryant did. Now all the coaches past Nick Saban and past Kalen DeBoer and whoever's next, they're going to benefit from what Nick Saban did because you're building on that program. You have a proof of history of consistent national championships. It's always been that way. I mean, Bear won his last one in what, 70 something or early 80s, whenever it was. And then they didn't win another one until Gene Stallings in 92, I believe is what it was, 93, something like that. Yeah. But all those recruiting classes for those 12 years in between were still really high, top caliber recruiting classes. It's just up to the coach to get it done then. And so I think, yeah, I agree with you 100%. That argument and those jabs are obviously it's just jealous fans and everybody's going to have fun with things. But some people are
for sure.
Some people are acting like that's the real deal. And it's like, well, no crap. Everybody is going to benefit from that. Ryan Day benefits from Jim Tressel and what he did there and what Urban Meyer did there. Urban Meyer benefited from what Jim Tressel did. Like it's built on one another. It is a program, 100%. And so if you're a winning program, even if you get a new coach, the program's still a winning, dominant program. They're going to benefit from the past and the history of the program 100%. But it's always been that way for Alabama. I don't know the last time they had a top recruit or a recruiting class outside the top 25, and it's been a really long time since they've had a recruiting class outside the top 10. I mean, even in the early 2000s, Brody Kroll was a really top quarterback out of high school. He just didn't really have great coaching, in my opinion. They just weren't a great team.
And terrible injury luck, by the way.
100%. But they still went 8 or 9 games. I mean, Bama's won only like 3 or 4 games like 4 times in their history. Like they always win because they always have great recruiting classes, which has been beneficial since Bear Bryant left.
Yeah, great players make great coaches. I mean, that's
100%.
It's about the players. At the end of the day, coaching matters 100%, but it's like Nick Saban can't take Miles College and win a national title. Like it's just, he's the best to do it, and he can't. He wouldn't be able to he can't take Miles College and go beat Alabama or go beat.
Part of what makes a coach a great coach is being able to recruit, and he was by far the best at doing that.
Yeah.
Same with Kirby. There's a reason that Kirby got to 100 wins faster than any other coach ever by one game. He beat Saban by one game, and he beat Spurrier by 2 or 3 games. But there's a reason because he recruits and he understands what you just said. Great players make me good. So he went out and got the best players possible. But he also benefited from Mark Richt. Mark Richt, I don't think he lost I don't think he won less than 9 games, but maybe 2 times. He was 9 or 10 wins or more every year. He had a history of winning football games there. That's easier to get recruits there, especially when you're Kirby Smart and you come from the Saban recruiting ranks or the Saban coaching ranks, and you go to a program like Georgia who wins 9 or 10 games every year, no doubt.
100%.
I mean, they had a down year last year and they won double-digit games, and everybody was pissed off about them. 2 years ago, they lost in the SEC championship, should have made it to the playoffs. They were one of the best 4 teams for sure, and they won 10 games, and people were losing their minds about it. That just shows you benefit off your past history always. Always.
100%. It's about the resources. It's about the brand. And like I said, that's why I was like, you've got a guy that doesn't guarantee anything, but a guy that's won every stop he's been at so far. He's coming to a program that's already among the top, at worst, 3 to 5 programs in America. And It's like, this guy's supposed to just fall on his face. Like, I just don't see it. I mean, not to say he's going to win multiple championships or anything like that. Who knows? He may not win one. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's like, I just never saw the guy coming in and just falling just flat on his face. Like it just, the way where the program was and the success he's had, and the brand Alabama is, because all these kids you're recruiting now, and resources matter, money matters, but it's like, all the kids you're recruiting today, all they know is Alabama being at the top. That's all they know. Their whole life. I'm 27. I remember Alabama being bad, but it wasn't for much of my life. It was a small part at the very beginning.
Fifth grade on, they've been good. When we were in
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
fourth grade and third grade was the last time they were bad.
hey, we're 9 and 10 years older than these kids they're recruiting now. And I can barely remember Alabama being bad. Like a couple years. I mean, it was a little stretch there early on. I remember the fear of the thumb jokes. I remember them very vividly, actually. So I do remember that. I do remember that period of Alabama being bad. And I remember going to school thinking, man, Alabama's just not that good, man. We're losing the Iron Bowl every year and all that. But it didn't last very long. And all these kids now are just like they don't even remember any of that. So um, that's all I got to say on that. We'll continue to follow recruiting. Long way to go to December, and a lot can change. Obviously, we see it every year how much it changes from the summer months to December now. Um, but really enjoyed this episode though, previewing Alabama and Tennessee. Um, we'll just save a little. We'll save the suspense for next week of what the two teams are going to be next week. We'll find that out here shortly. Um, but just be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. It's fun to have episode 2 of an 8-part preview series in the books. And we'll see you guys back here soon on Saturdays in the SEC.
Yes, absolutely. Follow us on TikTok. We're going to start getting clips and stuff on TikTok. We're going to kick that back up. I know that's a lot of easier way to intake media nowadays, especially with our generation and the younger generation. It's once you get on TikTok, it's hard to get off. That's why I don't let myself get on too much. But we're going to pick up our TikTok presence for sure and get clips out there and hope you guys can interact with us a little bit and tell us how dumb we are, how smart we are, or if you agree with us, or if we're idiots and all that stuff. I'd love to see it all. So just follow us on TikTok, Saturdays_SEC, I believe is what it is. If not, I'll correct that next episode.
Sounds great. Thank you guys. We'll see you back here next week.
See you guys.